All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to be doing a little lecture today, as you see on the screen. So we ended the last time with the last lesson on the Battle of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Before that, we talked about D-Day and how that was D-Day was launching Great Britain, launching into France, get through Normandy Beach, get through the Atlantic Wall. So that's kind of where we were at. Now we're going to start, okay, well, what do we do after D-Day? How is that eventually going to lead to the end of World War II in Europe? Not in Japan, but in Europe. So today that's going to be our goal, talking about that. Obviously make sure you guys are checking Google Classroom. You'll have some things to complete for this, as well as for the atomic bomb that will wrap up World War II, and then we'll get into the Cold War. Now, again, you guys already tested on World War II. We will have a Google form exit ticket of some sort to do for this section of it. So anyway, all right, so here we go. Kind of going through this. So make sure you guys are jotting this down somewhere, or just if you're good auditory listeners, that's fine too, whatever you want to do. All right, so today's topic is on Europe. What do we do after D-Day? All right, so again, D-Day was June 6, 1944. So notice by the slide here, so after D-Day, by August, so roughly about 2.5 months after D-Day, we liberate Paris. So we get through Normandy Beach, get through the cliffs, get past the cliffs, start making our way down into Paris. We get there about 2 months. So here's a picture of the Allied forces, Americans and British, rolling into Paris to liberate it from Nazi rule. Now, again, guys, I can't make this clear enough. D-Day was extremely important because if we would have failed, that meant the Germans would have had France for a lot longer. If we would have failed, we would have lost the war. So us having the ability of penetrating the beaches, getting past their initial defense, made it possible to start liberating some of these French cities. But it was also, important to at least understand. Don't forget, you have the Eastern Front. You have the Russians fighting against the Germans on the Eastern Front. And think about, we talk about Stalingrad, we talk about Leningrad, and how the Germans lost those battles. So the Russians are pushing Germany back towards Germany, and now when the French and the Americans now open up that Western Front, now we're gaining these lands and pushing Germany back toward Germany until eventually they meet. So Germany is spread really thin. Hitler is now retreating on both sides, Eastern and West. And by September, roughly about a month after the liberation of Paris, the Allies, they retake all of France, they retake Belgium, they retake Luxembourg, and they retake the Netherlands. So a lot of the lands that Hitler once controlled in the beginning part of the war are now back under Ally forces' hands. Now, again, 1944, at this point, you start seeing there were, how can I put this, a faction of German military, German government leaders, not a lot, but there were some, that basically saw the writing on the wall. They were losing on the Eastern Front. They lost D-Day. Allied forces got into Paris. There were Germans that were realistic, knowing that the war was not going to be a matter of if that they lost, but when. So there were some German military and German government leaders that believe the only way for Germany to survive this is if they kill Hitler. So there in June and July of 1944, there began to become some plots to try and kill Hitler. So Operation Valkyrie is one example of that, where they were trying to get Hitler into a meeting place, and there was a man who brought a briefcase in that had a bomb in the briefcase. He went to the bathroom and he detonated the bomb. Again, the plan was to kill Hitler. The bomb goes off, it kills 20 people in the room. Problem is for him that Hitler was injured but did not die. So after that, Hitler became very paranoid, began kind of closing his circle up a little bit, and really starting to realize that some of his men maybe are not as trustworthy as he once thought. And one of the men that was implicated in this plot was General Rommel. Remember, we told him the Desert Fox in northern Africa, in charge of Africa Corps. He was a very well-respected Nazi general, and when they found out that Rommel knew about this plot and didn't really come forward and try and stop it, Hitler gave Rommel an ultimatum: either A, we will kill you and kill your family, or B, you commit suicide, your family will live, and you'll be buried with full military honors. Rommel will choose the last option. He will commit suicide, his family will survive, and he will be buried with military honors. And the reason why Hitler gave him that option and just didn't downright kill him was because, again, he was a very popular Nazi soldier, and if he would have come out and told the German people that Rommel, his right-hand man, his high up in the Nazi party, tried killing him, that would have made Hitler seem like he's losing a grip, like he's losing some loyalty in the military. So, kind of move on. So you can see basically what I was saying. Here's the Eastern Front over here, Poland, the Soviet Union. You see now the line is here, halfway through Poland now. You're starting to see the Soviets starting to make up ground. And now you see over here, it's now from this line over is now under U.S. and British command. So now that it's starting to shrink. Now here is the deal. As the Soviets start going into Poland and into Germany over here, both sides, Soviets and the Americans, they start finding these concentration camps that were abandoned by the Nazis. Many of these Nazi camps, the soldiers in them got word that the Allies were closing in on their camps. So what the Nazis did, they would kill as many Jews as they possibly could through firing squad, or they would just basically toss bodies into furnaces, create mass graves, and then leave the camps in a hurry. Many of these Nazi soldiers that were in these camps, were alerted by locals. So that's why some of the cases, a lot of the locals in these towns helped the Nazis out. They knew what was going on, and they had a hand in alerting them about how we were closing in on their camp, kill as many as they can, and then for whoever was surviving, you just lock them up in there for the Allies to find. Which is what you'll find here. Red Army, which is the Soviets, moved through Poland. They discover concentration camps. They kill as many as they can. They trying to burn the evidence. And in these camps, guys, there were like warehouses full of luggage and teeth, jewelry. They walk into Jews like absolutely starving, finding mass graves uncovered, warehouses full of shoes. So it was a very troubling sight for the Allies to discover and to find. But again, going back to D-Day again, how important this mission was. If we weren't successful on D-Day, many more would have died. All right, so Hitler's retreating. Now, this was really the last major hurrah for Hitler. It was the Battle of the Bulge, and I'll go into about why it was called Battle of the Bulge in a minute. But this was his last, because at this point he's been on the defensive. He's been retreating. So he has this one last hurrah to go on the offensive and to attack the Allies. They call it Hitler's Last Stand, October of 1944. This was in the Allied forces get into the German cities. Can't let him get to Berlin. He has to do something. Hitler's planning a counteroffensive, so he's going to use new technology like the Tiger tanks and stockpiles of fuel that he has, and just try to create a massive bulge, as you see right here. So here's my cursor is going, you can see it or not, but up here in the thing, you see here's the line. They try and create a bulge which goes up to here, hence why it's called Battle of the Bulge. So initially, the first couple weeks of the battle, the Germans, they make a big dent, as you can see here, a big dent in the front lines. They push the Allies back. So after a couple weeks, though, we're able to get back on our feet. General Eisenhower is going to send in more reinforcements in to help supply the Allies in this line. Problem is, like even just with Russia, this was a terrible winter. It's going to hurt both sides. Essentially, for the Allies and for the Americans, they're not going to have a whole lot of air support. It's so cold that the Allied planes they can't fly in that cold of conditions. So unfortunately for the Allies and Americans, they're not going to have the air superiority in the planes to be able to help them. They're going to be kind of on their own. So that's good for the Germans. But the problem is too for the Germans that they start running low on fuel. Weapons don't work because it's so cold. So the storm is also going to hinder them as well, as you'll see. Okay, so there's a battle of the Bulge, but you also have this famous battle at Bastogne, where the Americans were trapped in the city. Germans had it surrounded by December 20th, 1944. The 101st Airborne was stationed there, and their orders was to dig in. Don't let the Germans take this city. U.S. medical staff was captured. The Germans, though, were low on bullets, low on food, so sensing that they had this city surrounded, they send a message to General McAuliffe, which is an American general at the time, and demanded their surrender. And General McAuliffe goes, nuts! We're not going to surrender. So they dig in, and they take a shelling. Brutal. I'll have an Ed puzzle go along with this that you'll have to complete, and you'll be able to see it. But they held off long enough for General George Patton for his army to arrive and to help at Bastogne, and will help save Bastogne. Once this happens, by January, Hitler has to cancel the invasion, withdraws troops to get him into Berlin. At this point, guys, the war is basically over for Hitler. It's not surrendered, but they have no chance of going on any more offensive attacks. So in February, the Yalta Conference, the big three meet. Over here you see, here's Churchill, here's FDR, here's Stalin. FDR was just elected to his fourth term. Harry Truman is the vice president. Keep that in mind. So the big three meet, and they basically make some deals here. This is the launching point of the Cold War right here. Again, Stalin and FDR did not like each other. Winston Churchill and Stalin didn't like each other. It was one of those things where they had a common enemy. Stalin's a communist, so there were some deals here that had to be made. One is we need to get assurances from Stalin that they were going to help us out when defeating the Japanese once Germany surrendered. So eventually Stalin gave in, but he wanted something. He wanted Poland. He wanted Romania. He wanted Bulgaria. He wanted all these Eastern European nations under his control. Because, again, Stalin's big thing is that he wants defense. Why? Germany invaded Russia in World War I and World War II. That's twice. So he wants security. So if he wants Poland, he wants all these other countries, he wants to create a buffer zone. So if Germany ever to invade again, they have to go through those countries first before they get to the Soviet Union. So that's his big thing. So we agree, but we force Stalin into saying he promises to give those countries free elections. That's bogus. He's not going to give them free elections. They'll turn into communist nations. But at this Yalta Conference, this is what will be promised. And also, what do you do with Germany? Again, big lesson. What we did after World War I didn't work. We hammered Germany, punished them, and we left. Didn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay in Germany. We're going to split Germany up into two Germanys. East Germany, which will be run by the Soviets, communism. West Germany will be split between Americans, British, and the French. That will be democratic. So Germany will be split. So in April 45, FDR has a stroke. He dies. Harry Truman becomes president. Keep that in mind. We'll talk more about that later on. And now it's a race to Berlin. Who's going to get there first? The Soviets from the east or us from the west? Well, the Soviets get there first. Hitler is hiding in a bunker. He will get married to his longtime girlfriend, Eva Braun. They both will commit suicide. Why? Because he saw what happened to Mussolini. Body was hung upside down, naked, embarrassed, stoned. He doesn't want to have the same thing happen to him. So on May 8th, 1945, VE Day, victory in Europe. Eisenhower will accept the German surrender. All right, and then the Nuremberg trials. What do you do with all the Nazis that were responsible for the Holocaust? Well, you put them on trial. 24 will be tried for crimes against humanity, be sentenced to prison or the death sentence. And many more will be hunted afterwards. After World War II, many will leave Germany and they'll be hunted down for years later. All right, that's it for today.